Good morning, everybody, and very much welcome to our webinar where we are going to be relaunching our AHP Principles of Practice-Based Learning. So thank you everyone for taking the time to come along today. There's quite a few of us here who are all hiding behind the scenes at the moment. So as we all come on and do our talking bit, then we will introduce ourselves. But I'm Carolyn, I am Head of Education at the Royal College of Occupational Therapists. And as I said, you are very, very welcome to coming along today. So just a couple of housekeeping bits. Just to let you know that there's a chat facility, and fingers crossed there's also a Q&A facility. So as your questions, as you've got any questions for us for the panel, there'll be an opportunity at the end to take those questions. So do pop those specifically in the Q&A section and we'll be able to pick those up. And then chat, just feel free to introduce yourselves and get chatting and make those networks and connections across everybody who's joined us today. The session's also being recorded and it will be put on our website, so just bear that in mind, and you will be able to then have access to that in due course. We'll be able to share that on all our different professional body websites, and you'll be able to access it and share amongst your colleagues as well as our other resources. So the plan for the next hour or so is to just give you a bit of an update really on the story so far, introduce everybody and talk a little bit about our collaboration. We'll talk through the principles so that you can become familiar with those again. Some of you will be, some of you won't be. And we'll talk a little bit about embedding the principles in your work, and we'll be joined by a colleague there. And then there'll also be an opportunity for questions at the end. So as I said, pop those in the chat. And if you want to shout about this, and we would love for you to shout about this on Twitter or any other social media, then talk about the placement principles and use the hashtag AHPs working together. So I'm going to hand you over to Tamsin.
Yeah, morning everybody. My name's Tamsin Baird and I'm an education advisor at the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, the CSP. So we'd like to find out who's in the room today. So within the AHP Principles of Practice-Based Learning, we refer to a three-legged stool. So we've got learners, which would include students and apprentices. We've got university representatives and those in practice. So all of these legs are essential to develop our future workforce. So we would like to find out who is here today. So there is a QR code on the screen in front of you. If you've got a mobile device, open up your camera, hover it over that QR code, and it should take you to Menti. Otherwise, you can go to menti.com and pop in the code 56288457, and it should allow you to say which leg of the stool you are in. Okay, it looks like it's working because we've got some results coming through. It's really zoomed in on my screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go. Brilliant. Fantastic. So we can see that we've got representatives here from each of those legs. We've got learners, we've got students, hopefully some apprentices I saw pop up in the chat. Brilliant to have you along. Welcome. We've got university representatives and lots of people from practice. So that's fantastic. Okay, Menti should take you on to another question where it should allow you to select which AHP profession you're representing today. Oh, this is brilliant to see. Excellent. So we have got representation from all of the AHP professions who are co-badging and integrating these principles of practice-based learning, which is brilliant to see. Thanks, guys. Okay, so The development of the principles has been quite a journey to be on. So rewinding back to early spring in 2022, this was a conversation between the CSP and RCOT. And, you know, we were really aware that placements are a challenge to many, if not all, healthcare professions. And as healthcare education takes place across universities and practice, this awareness that it really does require joined up thinking. And especially as many of our professions are growing and there's more demand on practice than ever before. So placements might be defined as a wicked problem, okay? So wicked problems are complex and they're unpredictable. They have interdependencies across different systems, and really frustratingly, they're impossible to solve completely. So there is no quick and easy solution to the challenge of placements within healthcare education. And if there was, it would have been done years ago. But, and there's positives here, what wicked problems do offer is this real opportunity to connect, to communicate, and to collaborate with a strong common purpose. And that's exactly what we hope to achieve through the AHP principles of practice-based learning. So since the launch, which we've just worked out was more or less exactly 1 year ago today for version 1 of the principles, they really have acted, you know, we've been delighted to see that they really have acted as a catalyst and a framework for conversations across practice and education, as well as amongst other professions that we work closely with. Now, it's these conversations that have led to the launch of this updated version, co-badged by 10 professional bodies. You know, let's say that again, 10 professional bodies, which we're absolutely delighted about. And in doing so, we've renamed them the AHP Principles of Practice-Based Learning, because these challenges of practice-based learning are common across our professions. So we aspire that by working together with this clear and consistent messaging, there really is a collective opportunity to better shape and support placement provision for the future workforce. So what's changed? Well, you know, the change of the name is probably the biggest change to the principles. Their vision and their purpose remains exactly the same. So to support the development of quality, sustainable placement opportunities for pre-registration AHP students and apprentices. We have made small changes to the language to make sure they are inclusive of all professions, and additional profession-specific references have been embedded as well. This document is to be used by everyone involved in practice-based learning, so everyone within those 3 legs of the stool, and the same principles are applicable across all of our professions, with the real hope that having this common language and this shared purpose to enable the principals to offer this opportunity to really understand different perspectives, but importantly, to identify areas for joined up working, both within and across our professions. What this actually means, I've just been on the HCPC website, so for the registered workforce across our 10 professions, the registered workforce is just under 235,000 healthcare professionals. Add that to the mix, our fantastic valued support workforce, as well as our students, the reach for these principles that we hope they could have, it's fantastic to see. So thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so here they are, the 7 principles. We are going to run through these in more detail very shortly, but before we do so, we'd like to hear from all the professional bodies who are co-badging the document.
Sorry, I've got a bit of a sensitive mouse there. So is Craig able to join us today, or Mike? not sure they have been able to, but the British and Irish Orthotic Society are one of the professional bodies that have joined us, and they gave this statement. So they've talked here about orthoptics is a small profession, and so collaboration with other professions gives us a bigger voice. We can share good practice and we can learn each other's. And I'm going to hand you over now to the other professions and professional bodies, and you can hear their perspectives too. There's a slight delay on the slides, so I'm just going to hopefully move them forward as quickly as I can for you. Peter.
Yes, thanks for inviting me to speak today. So, yeah, we welcome the APO, the Prosthetists and Orthotists professional body, welcome collaboration with all our other colleagues, especially those who've initiated this collaboration. We do recognise that practice-based learning creates challenges for both educators and learners, and we believe that these principles and the framework that contains them will support educators and learners to deliver and experience those broader learning outcomes that I think we're looking for. And those experiences, I think, will particularly lean into launching successful and rewarding careers in our profession of prosthetics and orthotics. Thank you.
Good morning all. My name is Menna Winwright and I'm the Education Manager at the British Dietetic Association. We also are delighted to be part of the collaboration of AHP colleagues, united in our support of a common set of practice-based learning principles. So many thanks to CSP and ARCOT for initiating this work. As the slide indicates, these common set of practice-based learning principles, which are applicable to all allied health professionals, encapsulate the key components required for practice educators and education providers. For us, they will allow our dietetic learners to receive that high-quality practice-based learning across a whole range of diverse settings, offering a real positive experience. These principles reflect the ethos of the BDA curriculum framework and are echoed by the BDA accreditation process. The BDA has recently updated its education web pages to provide a wealth of resources ranging from guidance documents, case studies, tools, webinars, etc. And we've also developed some online practice-based learning models around the dietetic process, leadership and research. And this document will be added to the website. A link is on there provided, and I'm sure that they will be well received by our members. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Donnell and I'm an operating department practitioner, and I'm chair of the Education and Standards Committee for the College of Operating Department Practitioners. Just to say, firstly, a huge thanks to Carolyn from the Royal College of Occupational Therapy and Tamsin from the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy for the participating in this project. It's really, really appreciated. And the college is delighted to join the other 9 professional bodies who've worked collaboratively, working to support growth and quality of practice-based learning in pre-registration education. And the 7 principles, they work really well alongside our own standards for supporting pre-registration operating department practitioner education in practice placements, which were reviewed and published again in 2021. Again, huge thanks. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kirsty Lowry-Richardson. I'm the Head of Education at the College of Paramedics, and want to echo colleagues' huge thanks to Carolyn and Tamsin for this amazing piece of work and for spearheading this. I'm actually going to hand over to a couple of colleagues who've been working really closely on this because it's really timely for us here at the College of Paramedics. We've currently been reviewing our pre-registration curriculum and we're about to launch it tomorrow. So I'm going to hand over now to Matt and Chris. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. As Kirsty says, this has been a really pivotal set of principles to introduce to the new curriculum. Myself and my colleague Matt, who will speak in a moment, have co-chaired a working group of how we integrate these principles. And we've recognised that practice-based learning is absolutely a pivotal part of paramedic practice development. And integrating these principles into the latest curriculum will allow education providers to develop exciting practice-based learning opportunities for learners. It'll also allow for shared and consistent language to be used across that environment. So we can recognise experienced paramedic learners of high quality, and we view this as an essential mechanism to enhance that experience by all involved, including the practice educators, the placement providers and the education providers. And I'll hand over to Matt, I think, who's sitting in the wings waiting to go. Or perhaps not. Thank you.
I'm Ben Bullen. I'm representing the Royal College of Podiatry. I myself am a podiatrist. Again, I echo the sentiments of other colleagues, thanking Carolyn and Tamsin very much for the opportunity to contribute to these shared principles. We're delighted to work with AHP colleagues on this uniform approach to the principles of practice-based learning. We recognise this common framework. It really challenges educators to look differently at practice-based learning, places the learner front and centre, and it asks education providers of practice-based learning to look deeper and more broadly at what activity can be offered. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm utterly glad to join today's webinar on behalf of the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. Thank you very much, Caroline and Tamsin, for your hard work and for having us as part of this project. I will complement this, what is already on the slide, with some additional thoughts. So the RCSLT joined this collaboration as we think a collaborative approach to interprofessional working is hugely important in practice, and engagement with shared principles for practice placements show this commitment from the earliest opportunity. The principles reflect the RCSLT's practice-based learning guidance in areas such as ensuring an inclusive and welcoming learning environment on all practice placements, and expecting flexible and supportive supervision for all learners. As it was said before, we also strongly feel the principles act as a catalyst for conversation and structured thinking to support the thousands of practitioners who are delivering practice-based learning opportunities for our future workforce. And once more, thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Dr. Amy Robertson. I'm one of the professional officers for education and accreditation at the Society and College of Radiographers. And I'm here with my colleague, Catherine Williamson, as well, so who will introduce the second sort of embedding strategy that we've taken from this collaborative project. As my other colleagues have said this morning, we absolutely want to thank Tamsin and Caroline for bringing us on this journey together. So I think one of the most important things that we'll take from these new principles is that we're going to embed them into our College of Radiographers program approval strategy, and these help us to really shape the learning environment for radiographers by focusing on what matters to the learners and making sure that we have a really good quality experience in practice placements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. I'm Catherine Williamson, working alongside Amy in the role of Professional Officer for Education and Accreditation at the Society and College of Radiographers too. We're very pleased to work with all the professional bodies in the development of these principles. We relaunched our Education and Career Framework back in November last year, and we're very pleased to see that we've been able to ensure that the principles that have been produced really align with the ethos of the ECF, and we've got a feature of the practice educator within that framework. We also hope to ensure that the principals will be able to support those who seek practice educator accreditation through the college. This is a scheme which seeks to recognise the contribution that practice educators make and also drive quality and shared learning within that space. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. What a great group of people. It's been so lovely to work together. We often come together in different formats, but to work together on a project has been a really lovely thing to do. So let's work through these principles. Let's share the principles with you. And as I said, we recognise that everybody has different levels of experience and familiarity with the principles. So as we go through them, I would ask you to have a think about these questions. And these questions sit within the document. So at the end of each principle is a set of 3 questions. The second 2 are always the same. The first one's slightly different, tweaked, relevant to that principle. But we're essentially asking you, what are you doing in relation to this principle? What else can you do? And how will you measure impact? And we know that for some of you, this is a starting point. This is about breaking down that enormity of how do I get involved in supporting practice-based learning. For others, it's a tweaking or a reassurance. But for all of you, we would hope you would find this really valuable and an opportunity for you to really take together, an opportunity to work together across all 3 legs of the stool to really develop and enhance a fabulous placement offer that is going to be sustainable, so that you're putting all that time and effort into a quality offer that you can repeat and repeat, maybe slightly different ways, slightly different learners, but you can absolutely invest that time and feel it's been really useful. So I'll hand over to Tamsin for the first one.
Thank you. Okay, so principle 1, here's the stool. Okay, so practice-based learning opportunities are co-produced. So what this is all about is, rather than focusing on the different priorities across the different people who are involved in placements, it encourages us to consider their shared purpose. So lots of people on this call are on this webinar from practice, and your priority may be to recruit new members into your team. We've got lots of people from the world of education, and for you guys, we need to ensure that the graduates, the students graduate on time, and in doing so as work-ready professionals. And the students on the call as well, looking for themselves to be our future workforce, and to achieve the common goal to develop the future workforce, we must all work together. So the 3-legged stool, one leg of the stool, as we said, is practice. So this represents the placement setting and everybody within it. The second leg is the learner. So this is the individual, whether it be a student or apprentice who is going on placement, who applies themselves to that practice-based learning environment. And the third leg is university, so the education provider to which that learner belongs. Now you can see that each leg may be separate, but they're all massively essential, because if one of the legs is missing, then the common goal to develop the future workforce can't be achieved. Without practice providing placements, students can't graduate. Without universities supporting practice educators, quality placements cannot be created and innovative placements cannot be created. And without learners, like I've said, really being front and foremost and engaging in placements across these different areas of practice, how can a future workforce be developed? And the answer is they can't. So no principle can be successfully achieved by working alone. This is the first principle because it's integral to our approach to the whole document, but also to practice-based learning. And I think it makes it even stronger having 10 professional bodies supporting this as well. So going back to those questions that Carolyn asked, so what are you currently doing to work with other people across the legs of the stool? What else could you do? And how would you be able to measure impact? Okay, principle 2, practice-based learning takes place across all areas, pillars and levels of practice. So, we're at a really exciting time in the evolution of all of our professions. UK healthcare is experiencing such fast-paced change, and as a result, where we work and how we practice is changing too. So we work across different sectors of health and care, including the independent sector, the NHS and the third sector. We work across lots of different settings too. And it's been brilliant working with the other professional bodies to add in even more settings where we work, because it is such a long list that could go on and on and on. We work across the 4 pillars of practice as well, so clinical, education, leadership and research. And again, many of the professions on the webinar today seeing the real importance of this by embedding these pillars firmly within our respective career frameworks. So practice-based learning or placements need to reflect this breadth of the workforce too, to better reflect the current health and care provision and this evolution of our professions, so that learners must engage in a real diverse range of placements across these different sectors, settings and pillars. And in doing so, we all have a necessary growth in numbers or required growth in numbers of our learners. And it can often feel like it's the same people in practice who supervise the learners. And this might be in part due to our perceptions of what's the best way to deliver a placement, but we encourage everybody here to challenge this way of thinking, because more placements across more areas, levels and settings of practice means that more people can get involved and more learning opportunities can become unlocked. And, you know, all this means that hopefully more solutions to the challenges in practice can be enabled. And our future workforce should develop the knowledge, skills and behaviours that they need to thrive in modern healthcare. Thank you. I'm going to hand back over to Carolyn.
Brilliant, thank you. So principle 3 is around learning environments must be inclusive and welcoming to everybody. And we think, and the feedback that we've had over the last year has been that this is the most challenging of principles for everybody. So there's slightly different language within this principle title that reflects that it's something that's important and something that must happen. And in using that word must, we recognise that there's work for all of us to do, involved, you know, for everybody who's involved in placement delivery. We've all got lots to do. So we've detailed in here that it's intentionally bold to encourage us to do better and to be better. And we recognise that in all of us working together, we can transform practice. And that's going to require us to feel some discomfort and embrace that discomfort that it's going to bring as we go through that process. We recognise in this principle that we need a strong and diverse workforce that's more representative of our society, and it's absolutely key that that workforce is where everyone feels they belong and they have that sense of belonging. So across all our professions, our learner populations are becoming more diverse and more representative of society. Our learners have different needs, different identities, backgrounds, experiences, such an amazing, inspiring group of people. And so it's really vital that we make sure that our placement experiences are positive and equitable, inclusive, and ensure that sense of belonging. We know research tells us that placements can often be that make or break decision point for people in terms of their accepting the choice of profession, and have they made the right choices, and I'll go on placement, see how it goes. So we've got to make sure that absolutely those placements are meeting their needs and they feel that sense of belonging. So we talk here that learners, universities and practice teams all have a role and responsibility. We need to be actively anti-racist, anti-discriminatory and anti-oppressive in our practice. And to do that, we need to identify, challenge and remove structural barriers to achieving that equality of opportunities and experience for everyone. So we're going to embrace some discomfort, and we're also going to recognise that we're going to make some mistakes. And we've used in here a phrase that Dave Thomas used last year. He was facilitating, where he encouraged us all to seek discomfort. So intentionally and actively seeking out diversity. And if we're uncomfortable, we're probably doing it right. We need to challenge ourselves, we need to evolve and grow, and that's everybody's responsibility. So in recognising this principle and the enormity of it all, and it's often quite hard to know where to start maybe, we've included some actions and behaviours within this principle. It's got a bonus page for you that we encourage you all individually and as teams to have a look at, to see kind of really to give you a bit of a starting point, I guess, and to see how you can put this principle into action.
Okay, back over to me. So principle 4, practice-based learning uses flexible, appropriate and supportive models of supervision and delivery. Within this principle, we highlight that there really is no such thing as a traditional placement. We all practice our professions in so many ways that we can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. It simply just wouldn't work. And to create quality, sustainable placements that better meet the needs of the setting, the team, and the learners, who are all individual, we should think flexibly in terms of how learners are supervised and how placements are delivered. Within this principle, we discuss the HCPC standards of education and training, but we also acknowledge that there is flexibility in design for some professions, and supervision can and will differ between placements. We go on to discuss different placement models available, the benefits of peer learning to some learners and also to practice alike. But we do also acknowledge the relevant legislation that is in place for some types of supervision within some of our professions. We acknowledge that having so much choice in placement design can sometimes feel overwhelming, and we highlight the crucial role of universities, practice and learners to support each other to develop placements that work better for all. This is an area where there are some elements of profession-specific components, and we urge you to refer to some of our web pages, our relevant profession-specific web pages, for more information and support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so principle 5 is that practice-based learning is designed with a whole team approach. So it's a very simple principle. Everybody's got a role in practice-based learning. So our learners, our students and our apprentices need to be considered as an integral part of our work. So within this principle, we talk about how all teams, no matter how big or small, a single team of one, might have definitely that wealth and knowledge of skills. And that might be across your own profession or across the professions in this room today or across the wider professions, across the scope of practice and at different levels of practice. So registered and non-registered practitioners. Everyone can define their role, and in doing so, our learners will feel valued. And that role is really key. You know, it might be that you're the person that welcomes somebody on, at the door and says, "Hello, welcome to your placement." You might be the practice educator. You might be offering opportunities for a day or so. So everyone has a role, and that's absolutely key that we're able to talk about and identify that role. So a whole team approach enables learners to immerse themselves in practice, and by identifying those opportunities and recognising the skills needed to support the learners, we can develop people to excel in that role. We've all got a professional responsibility to provide practice-based learning opportunities, and learners will benefit from spending time and learning with you. I can guarantee you will be an inspiration to people, and you will people will really value spending that time with you. So in this principle, we ask everybody to begin to think about, what could I bring? What do I bring to placement opportunities? How will my strengths and skills be used? How will this support my own personal learning and development? And as a learner, you can actively define your role within the team. So take time to explore each person's role, embrace the opportunities that team working brings to develop your personal and professional skills. And everyone therefore has a role. And so what we want you to do is think about, what is your role? Where can you shine and where can you contribute within practice education? So it stays with me for principle 6. Oh, I forgot to move on for principle 5. I'm really sorry, but there's the information we talked about there. I can't multitask. So principle 6 is around all those involved in practice education are valued, respected and recognised within their roles. So it sits very nicely against principle 5 just afterwards. So there we've talked about everyone having a role, and it's therefore important that you feel valued in that role. So if we don't have quality and sustainable placement opportunities, there will be no future workforce. It's a very, very simple statement, really. Therefore, it's essential that we value and recognise and respect the importance of everybody who has a role in placements. And we've just talked there about how everyone has a role. So often it's the named practice educator, or whichever language you use within your own profession, who has their time and their training opportunities provided. And in this principle, we're saying that all of those people who are involved need to have their time and skills recognised and developed so that they can be and can provide the best introduction to the profession for our learners. We know that people have huge workloads and time is stretched and there are competing priorities, and often supporting practice-based learning can feel like an extra task. We absolutely understand and recognise that. However, it is a professional responsibility to provide placements and provide a learning culture within your organisation. So it's important that we all work together to support this and really use that strength of us together. So in this principle, we ask about what does it feel like to what does it look like to feel valued, to feel respected, to feel recognised. It's very easy for us to say, I don't feel these things, and often it's a bit harder for us to articulate what it does look like, and that's going to be different for everybody. So we provide some aspects, some ideas in there to be a catalyst for consideration, and consider how you can embed them. So some of those ideas include giving time to prepare for and undertake the role, being supported to take training and undertake training, recognising how that role aligns with different elements of our career development frameworks, being trusted to try new models of supervision or delivery and to create and lead innovative placement opportunities, being supported to identify a meaningful role that works to both your skill set and that of the team, and trusting our learners to have an active role in their own learning, really understand the skills and background and experiences they're bringing with them, and celebrating and sharing feedback, as well as being given some time to consider that constructive feedback and reflect and act on it. So I'll hand you back to Tamsin for our final principle.
Thanks, Carolyn. So principle 7, the final one, practice-based learning is evaluated, capturing data to drive improvement and demonstrate impact. This is massive because we need to be capturing meaningful data to tell us about our placements. Data tells you what you need to know about the value and about the impact that a placement can have. Yes, it can tell you about what's working well, but it could also be used to find out where there may be frustrations or areas to improve upon. Capturing data can enable different approaches to be tested out and help you guys to support a case for change, for doing things differently. So we really do encourage you to think about the evaluation through all 3 legs of the stool. And within this principle, we discuss understanding what data to gather, what you want to measure, why you want to measure it, and question you to consider what you intend to do with your findings. Because if this is planned, if this is prepared, then it will mean that any data that you capture would be more meaningful. So what might this be? So let's start off with practice. So what matters to practice staff, the educator and the practice team? It's likely their well-being should definitely matter. Their development within the education pillar of practice, the job satisfaction, and potentially this creation of a culture of learning. Do you currently measure this? And if not, let's consider what you capture with regards to data that matters to practice. Also, the other element of practice, when we're thinking bigger, would probably be the organisational and business drive. So it can be really hard to articulate the value of placements. So do you capture data with regards to the impact on retention, on recruitment, and the cost benefit of placements in the long run? Do you consider the impact that placements can have on patient safety, on key performance indicators, on patient outcomes, on staff satisfaction, and potentially staff productivity as well? All of this really matters to organisations and businesses. And if we're not capturing it at the moment, I would urge you to do so. We want to consider what matters to learners. So how supported do they feel on placement? How did they find the supervision structure? What worked well from their perspective, and where was the room for improvement? really considering all the different elements of this and capturing meaningful data will help to drive forward, to improve, and to make placement offerings a lot more sustainable. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So there are principles, and I'm hoping you get a sense through how everybody has talked about them and how Tamsin and I are sharing them. We really believe in these principles. We think they really do help to break down that enormity and hopefully give you the tools you need in terms of the conversations to have. So I'm going to see, is Jill Kent around today? If she is, we'll have a little catch up, and if she's not, I just want to share some feedback from Jill. So let's see. Jill, are you around? Been able to join us? Maybe not. So what I wanted to do is just give you a little bit of an overview from Jill, who has been a huge advocate for us. We wanted to just chat to somebody who's been really using our principles right from the beginning, and we were able to give Jill a sneak peek along with a few people last year, just before we launched the principles, to check and get a bit of feedback across people from all three legs of the stool. And Jill works within a university setting. She's a physiotherapist, and as you can see there, her role is head of department for the AHP professions. So within the 6, I think it is, AHPs that are delivered within that university, they are using the principles and have been a really good kind of early adopter and taking forward the principles for us. And as you can see there, she's really keen and committed to using them, but also excited that we've been able to work together as a group of AHPs. So she's put there, to have a shared set of principles demonstrating our collective values and visions is a seminal moment and an opportunity for us. So we were really excited to hear her feedback and really value her perspective as somebody who has absolutely been flying the flag for these principles at a regional level and within all of her work and across the AHP. So thank you, Jill, but hopefully other people have similar experiences, and we're really keen to hear from you and to hear how you're using the principles, what's working, what's not working so well, so that we can also pick up on that and make sure that as we continue to keep these principles up to date, although we're not planning on changing them every year, that we can really work towards getting that right for you. So do pop in the chat, and I would encourage you all to just pop any questions into the chat now if you've got any in there. So there should be a Q&A section for you to just pop any questions in, and we can pick those up in a minute. I'll hand you back to Tamsin.
Okay, so we would love you to go ahead and use these principles and really think about what they could mean for you. We are having some brilliant feedback so far of how they've been used. So just to let you know what that has been, there's been some conferences set up where where organisations have brought together their learners. Their university have tended to host them, but invited their partners in practice to really use the principles as an interactive workbook to consider what they're currently doing, what else you could do, and how to measure impact as a really collaborative approach. We're also hearing of practice structuring in service trainings or CPD sessions around the principles as well, again to get people really involved in how things could be improved. One of the areas that's getting really positive feedback is the self-reported questionnaire, the 10 questions that are incorporated within Principle 3, to really question where you feel you are with regards to creating a welcoming, inclusive environment and suggesting different areas to improve those. So a lot of positivity, and we want this momentum to absolutely continue. So if anybody on the webinar today has any ideas or any questions they would like to ask us about how they could do this, then please do let us know. Thank you.
Brilliant. So that brings us to the end of everything that we wanted to share with you, and I'd invite all my professional body colleagues to pop their cameras on. I think we might be a bit cramped on a screen, but we'll see how we do. So do send forward and pop through there any questions that you've got. I'm going to pinch the first question because it's a really easy question for us. So the question is, are the principles live on the website now? They're not live on any of our websites at the moment. There's just a teeny tiny tweak that we're just needing to resolve. There's always a little bit at the end, isn't there? So we're just doing that, and then we're hoping, with fingers and toes crossed, and please do the same, that they will be up by the end of today or tomorrow, and we'll make sure we let you know that. But yeah, absolutely, that's what we're working on, and definitely by Monday we will have them there. So I hope they'll be worth the wait for you. So okie dokie. So there's a question here. Sorry, I'm just trying to multitask with different screens here and get everything in the right place. So there's a question here that says, is there a plan to provide an audit or monitoring template so that we can benchmark how we're doing in terms of meeting the principles, or develop specific action plans, etc.? Who would like to answer that?
Caroline, I wonder if we could signpost people here to the Qualtrics survey. So one element of this is, within the document itself, there's space, there's like a bit of a there's a one pager which is a bit like a workbook within the principles, where it's intended for you to reflect, to consider different elements of action that can be documented within there. We showed earlier a QR code that would take you to an online version of these forms, where they're all together, where you're able to document where you're up to, you're able to save, you're able to share those elements as well. So you could use that as a bit of a template, a reflective template. With regards to an audit or a monitoring template, doesn't exist at the moment, but it doesn't mean that it's not something that we can consider going forwards. So we'll take that idea forwards. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to pop the link. Sorry for those of you who got motion sickness then as I whiz back through all the slides, but no, I'm just going to pop the link in the chat to the form that Tamsin has referred to. And if any of you are developing, what we want to do is create resources that can be shared. So we know there's some brilliant practice going on, and we share that with us. Different professions have different resources in place, and different organisations have different things. So I know there's lots of placement cafes around and those kind of forums. We've got placement cafes, so there's lots of opportunities to share your good practice and bring that back together. Okay, let me just find the next question. Sorry,
I've got it, Caroline, if you'd like me to run with it.
Yes, please.
It's from the lovely Helen Hart. Hi, Helen. She's commented that it's a really excellent work. And the question is, could she ask whether there's any plans to bring nursing colleagues on board? And the reasoning for this is, within her HEI, the school works as one. So she would love the principals to be part of the strategy that goes across nursing as well.
We should have that conversation with them, shouldn't we? So the honest answer is we haven't asked. That's just, I think that would be something that we're keen for everybody to be involved and to work together. There are some big differences, aren't there, in terms of how placements are managed within some other professions, and so things might not align quite as readily, but absolutely we should have that conversation.
We should.
Yeah. Okay. Ty Frater, thank you for your comment there. So you've asked, and I'll put this out to some of our professional body colleagues here, do you have any tips for increasing the uptake of leadership and education placements? So how do we make our placements broader? Mena?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's a multi-pronged approach, really, in terms of lots of promotion or examples of examples that have been taken place, whether in leadership or anything else that you can then promote, either through case studies or in the easings, whatever your organisation has that goes out there. So constantly, I think it's also about promoting the benefits of CPD to all those involved, so that more people can be involved. What we found, particularly around things like leadership, is where we've been able to provide some additional tools or resources which can help facilitate those placements. Those seem to be helpful to individuals if they're considering offering placements of that nature. So it's the sort of a variety of things, really, that we can do to support.
Brilliant, thank you. Did anyone else want to add to that? Catherine.
Thank you, Carolyn. I think from a radiography perspective, it's about being aware of the 4 pillars of practice. So the leadership and education, and how there might be opportunities to incorporate those in clinical placements for radiography. So opportunities to lead on managing a list, or opportunities to lead on an education project within that clinical setting. Thank you.
Brilliant. Tamsin?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't resist. Couple of things from me. So as a lot of our professions are bringing out the career frameworks that are aligned to the 4 pillars, for learners to be able to really see that these pillars matter throughout your career, and it really is integral to the profession, is one element that we're hoping to do, to do at the CSP, to join those bits of the jigsaw together a little bit clearer for our learners. Another area, another idea, you often find that people who have been on leadership or education placements, it's not until afterwards where they can really talk about what it's meant for them, with regards to those core skills and development within the profession. So I would encourage you to capture that feedback, and maybe not straight after the placement, maybe after a little bit of time, once people can understand that, and using some of those students who've potentially been on the placement to support others to talk about what they learn, maybe some of their worries beforehand, and what it meant to them, for them to be able to provide some of those tips as well. But good luck.
Brilliant. I think just to add to that, from an OT point of view, you know, absolutely what everyone else has said, placements have always been across the 4 pillars, but very much with a focus on clinical. We all have that aspect to our role where we are focusing on different leadership elements. And I think sometimes we can get really hung up on the title of whether it is a leadership placement or a research placement or a service evaluation or a project placement. It's the placement, and we just need to start really thinking about placements being placements, and that some of them might have a much stronger focus on the clinical side of things, or a much stronger focus on the leadership. And in the same way that in our practice we have days or roles that have different peaks and troughs across those 4 pillars, and so it's absolutely key. And the other bit is, when we've talked about the diversity of our learners, you know, we've increasingly got people who are coming into studies and this is their 2nd or 3rd career. They have previous degrees, previous high levels of study, you know, huge ranges of backgrounds and experience that can be really valuable to the change that we're needing and wanting to support within our organisation. So let's capture that. Let's use them to be really valuable and impactful on their placement as they're continuing to learn, and then they're ready, because not everyone's going to take that band 5, band 6 progression, you know, career pathway. People are taking very different pathways now, and that can begin from a placement point of view. Brilliant.
Caroline,
Okay.
just before we move on, I know we have got Jill Kent and Helen Batty on the call, who I think deserve a big shout out for their AHP community of practice that they've got on Twitter with regards to these types of placements. So if you don't follow that, please do. And Helen, if you could pop the link, if you haven't already done so, into the chat, because there's some really great minds and considerations to these types of placement. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I can see Jill's just popped a comment in there as well, so that's brilliant. Thank you. Elma, we've got this is our last question, but if you want to pop any more questions in, do feel free to go for it. So Elma's asked, have you got any suggestions on how to encourage more staff to become involved with practice education? I think that's the question I probably, and people are nodding, we all get asked more than anything. So what are our top tips to really entice people to get involved? Who wants to share? Go on then, Amy, go for it.
I guess, thank you, great question. I guess, first of all, from a more of an sort of professional body-led approach, we've really taken a focus on practice education, and we've given it its own dedicated section in our framework, which we've just launched, to really emphasise the importance of the role. We've put educational expectations in there and delineated the knowledge, skills and attributes. So we've really tried to put that role back into the spotlight because we realise how important it is. So I think there's lots of different levels we could do it at, but from an organisational and professional body perspective, that's the approach that we've taken. And then you know, there's lots of different ways to do it, but from that perspective, that's what we've done.
Brilliant. I think the bit I would say is use Principle 7 to support you. So one of the most powerful pieces of information I've heard is that there's a trust in London that has 100% recruitment from their students. So that's huge, isn't it? You know, that shows that that time that you're investing, people are having a great time, a positive experience, and they're wanting to come back and work with you. So we need to find the thing that will really help incentivize people as individuals. And if that's about supporting workforce and not having as many vacancies or whatever it might be, or students are able to focus on a particular audit or a project that's happening and they can get that piece of work delivered with you, it's finding that bit that really incentivizes somebody. But that stat around 100% recruitment is amazing. I'm sure it's more than one student that they've ever had that's then gone on. I do need to just check the numbers, but it's, you know, even if it was a 50 or a 70% recruitment, that's what a really powerful statistic to help you know then the value of what you're doing and the impact of it. Tamsin.
It ties massively into Principle 6 as well, for the reward, the recognition of practice education. It's such an integral role to be an educator, and considering from an organisational perspective what that means with regards to respect, recognition, workload, etc., but also from a HEI perspective as well as to how their educators are supported, because as we've said, we've got two such complex systems. We've got education and healthcare, which can often have competing priorities. So really working together for that reward and recognition needs to happen to be able to develop the education workforce, but also make them feel recognised. Another area is not to limit it. So we hear so often that you must be a band 7 to be a practice educator. And when we're thinking about becoming involved in practice education, think broadly, think about the support workforce, think about other professionals, think about people throughout their whole career, whether they're newly qualified, etc. How can they be involved in some shape or form within practice education? Within some professions, it can be as a practice educator once they've had that training and development. Within others, there may be opportunities to work together a little bit more to understand the value and then measure the impact on that with what you're doing.
Brilliant. You can see and probably sense that we all get asked that question a lot, but also I love that conversation of, well, these are our challenges, right? Let's find a workaround. Let's make it work for you. And I think it's something that everybody can get involved in. We just need to find the way it works for that person, doesn't it? And that organisation, that team. Brilliant. Okay, so we have a question here, which I think Tamsin might be best placed to answer. So what are your plans for these principles to be adopted and promoted within the NHS? My experience is there's little incentive for AHPs on the ground to work on improving practice-based learning as it's not viewed as important. I feel that there needs to be a top-down approach. So I wondered if you're working with Health Education England, which is now NHS England, and the regional faculties to get this embedded.
The brief answer is yes. Okay. So obviously there's a lot of layers of complexity to that, and the message relates to England. What we are planning on doing, and this is, you've heard a little bit from all the professional bodies about how they're going to be pushed out across membership and what they mean. We would like to work collaboratively if we can do that. So what that means is a systems approach, exactly how you've described there. We have people within the CSP, I can only speak on behalf of my organisation, who are going to be actively doing this and connecting with others, and I can see some other nods around the room, so that's fab to see. The second part of that is it's not just England. So the beauty of having the professional bodies rather than one country means that they're applicable across Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland as well. And I'm really delighted to say that we've had interest from NHS Education for Scotland as well to really consider launching and considering what that could mean for Scotland as a whole. That might be a surprise to some people on the call. It's not been something we've been aware of for too long, but it's all really positive. So continuing along those lines is exactly what we need to do. But we're also going to be considering the embedding of the principles across the private, independent and third sectors as well as NHS. So watch this space, but yes, we are.
And I guess we would really encourage you to take your role in promoting those and shouting about them. I used to be a bit, oh, I'm really sorry I'm mentioning the principles again, and now I don't apologise. I'm mentioning the principles again. They are something that we can use, that are there for everybody, that are relevant across the principles. So, you know, really think about what your role could be in embedding that and pushing for them to be involved in different places which maybe they're not. Does anyone want to add anything else to that, or any other final comments from anybody on our screen, any of our professional body friends? No? Brilliant. Okay, look at that, 11:59. So in my head, I always thought this was finishing at 12 o'clock. Apparently it was finishing at 12:30. So I'm going to give you all the half-hour gift of time, which hopefully is a really positive thing. And I would ask you to use that to think about what you've learned from today. But thank you so much for your contributions. The chat has been whizzing past at a speed on my screen. I haven't been able to read it all, and I look forward to going back and reading all of that later. But thank you so much for your time and contributions. The principles will be up, as I said, very, very soon. And we'll make sure you let you know when they're up. But do keep in touch, do share them, and do keep in touch to share with us how you're using them. And I think we will draw it to a close there. So thank you, everybody.